all day long when I was dancing in English because we were super international in my school. So it was good for me to like hear and speak it every day. And yeah, that's how I actually learned English. And yeah.
Cool. So that means you kind of confirm what it is I said then. You also developed your English through living your art. I think that's fantastic. That's great. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay, great. So I think I found the right person then. All right, so as we're sitting in our, my tiny little studio doing this thing, I'm very excited about our project that is coming up. Okay, good. All right, well, since this is all about English, what has been your experience learning the language? How did you learn and how did you improve?
I learned it at school, of course, for some years, and then I came to Berlin, and there are lots of people speaking English, and also in my dance education, we were a very international group of people, so we are talking most of the time in English, and also I like to watch films in English. Yeah, that's for me the easiest way to learn, like to hear how they use, and not to be in vocabulary learning stuck. like use it and talk to people and listen. That's the thing.
Hi, that was actually a preview of the upcoming episode 15, where I, together with two polished and talented collaboratives, attempt to stage and illustrate their improvised interpretations. All in tandem, of course, with our topic for today. I want to believe that this is a first, so be sure to check it out later. The following episode is a break from the norm, if you will, and uses what I can only describe as an unusual medium. After listening to this episode 12, together with the last episode 7 in the series on the present perfect, you will know exactly what to look for when you get to episode 15. In the last episode in this series, episode 7, we introduced the present perfect, and today we dig a little deeper. I have also recruited the expertise of my longtime friend and learned associate, Sibylle von Spitzen. And in today's encounter, we look at one of the most challenging questions: when to use the present perfect as opposed to the simple past. By the end of this episode, you will also know how to use time phrases and how to ask questions in the present perfect. You will also know how to talk about life experiences.
Herzlich willkommen zum English Coach Podcast, präsentiert von trainingtree.de, die personalisierte Lösung im Bereich Erwachsenenbildung. Und jetzt dein Gastgeber. Ach, wie er die Sprache spricht. Er liebt einfach, was er tut. Ist nur manchmal nicht ganz dicht. iAntonio Patterson.
Hello again. By now I know that you're a little more familiar with the meaning of the present perfect. You know the basic form, and you've had a chance by now, I hope, to look at the show notes from the last episode at trainingtree.de/podcast, or even had a chance to look at the book I recommended. Congratulations. As an English coach, I'm all for DIY English, do it yourself. There's also a link to an article on that. So feel free to check it out and check out all the other sources that you can get your hands on. Okay, now for a quick review. The present perfect is formed as follows. 1. Subject. This can be a proper noun or a pronoun such as I, she, he, they, it, etc. 2. Have or has always appears. And in this case, it's an auxiliary verb or a helping verb, if you like. It is sometimes not stressed and contracted. 3. The verb. The main verb is used in the past participle form, or the third form, as I often say. Sibylle von Spitzen sagt, and I quote, "You just have to study the verbs, especially the irregular ones. Practice the present perfect at best using the irregular verbs first. That way, your learning effect will be strengthened each time you consciously choose the appropriate past participle form." Again, you can find a list of irregular verbs in any grammar book, or better yet, Google it. Keyword irregular verbs English. End of quote. Okay, well, to be perfectly honest, I would perhaps never tell my learners to Google it, but Sibylle von Spitzen drinks her coffee black and she likes her whiskey straight. Okay, so that's just how she communicates sometimes. All right, now remember in the past episode we said that the present perfect tense is used to talk about things that started in the past and have a present result. In other words, we're talking about things that have a bridge to the past. If we pause a bit and think about time, we can say that the present perfect is all about so-called unfinished time. Think about that. If on the other hand, we're talking about something that doesn't really have a connection to now, doesn't really have any present observable evidence, we use the past simple. So let's pause again and think about time for a bit. We can say that the past simple is all about so-called finished time. When using the present perfect, in some if not most cases, we do not need to mention time, because it is understood that the relevant time period started in the past and has relevance that continues up to now. When using the past simple, we can specifically mention the finished time that we're talking about by using a time phrase. So let's look at 2 examples using the irregular verb eat, past tense, ate, past participle, eaten. All right, number 1. I ate yesterday. This is simple past. Finished time, yesterday. Is yesterday over? Yes. Is this a simple past? Yes. Am I hungry now? Maybe. Is the sentence written using have or has and the third form of the main verb? No. All right, the second example. I have eaten. This is the present perfect. Did I start eating in the past? Yes. Was it recently? Yes. Does it have any present effect? Yes, I am not hungry now. Are we talking about unfinished time? Yes, I am still not hungry. Do I need to use a time phrase? No. Is this sentence written using have or has and the third form of the main verb? Yes, it is. Naturally, the present perfect can also be used in negative sentences simply by adding not, N-O-T. The formula would then be subject plus have or has plus not plus the third form of the main verb. Now for some examples. I have not watched Netflix this month. That's the present perfect. Again, I have not watched Netflix this month. Are we talking about a recent time? Yes. This month started recently and it isn't over yet. Are we talking about unfinished time? Yes, it's the same month. Is the sentence written by using have or has and the third form of the main verb? Yes. Second example. I did not watch Netflix last month. That is the past simple. Are we talking about a recent time? No. Last month means it's over. Are we talking about unfinished time? No. Last month is finished. Is the sentence written using have or has and the third form of the main verb? No. It's all about time. As I've also said in the previous episode, the present perfect implies recentness. Therefore, in many cases, you do not need a time phrase oder auf Deutsch Zeitangabe. The present perfect on its own gives more information as is. The following time phrases can be used with the present perfect. Already, yet, before, never, recently, at last, ever, just, lately, this morning, this afternoon, this evening, today, this week, this month, so far, and until now. All of these time phrases express a quality of recentness. For my German natives, alle diese Zeitausdrücke drücken eine Qualität der Aktualität aus. I hope that was correct. All right. Now, I can move on to say, never use the present perfect with time phrases such as 2 months ago, 1 year ago, last week, yesterday, when I was 10 years old, or when I was 15 years old, or when I was 20 years old, or anything that looks like that. Sibylle von Spitzen sagt, and I quote, "These require the simple past. Attempting to use these kinds of time phrases with the present perfect is just wrong, whereas it not only ignores grammatical rules, but also threatens to challenge Einstein's theory of relativity." End quote. Okay, that is Sibylle von Spitzen for you again. So then, when do we use the present perfect? When you can imagine something like a bridge connecting the present to the past. So let's look at a few examples. I have 3 examples here for you. The first one, he's visited many countries. Again, he's visited many countries. We use the present perfect to talk about activities that you've done many times in the past and continue to do. He's visited many countries means that he will probably visit some more. The second example, they've been engaged for 5 years. We use the present perfect to talk about things that started in the past and continue. So again, our example, they've been engaged for 5 years. It means that she proposed to him 5 years ago and they're still not married. All right, now the third example. They've been skydiving many times. We use the present perfect to talk about life experiences. Again, they've been skydiving many times. Or, she's never been to China. Perhaps she will never go to China. And perhaps they will do skydiving a few more times. You'll notice there that I just used the contracted forms. He has to he's, she has to she's, and they have to they've. Okay, so now again for our German listeners. Unser Ziel für heute ist nach wie vor die Verwendung der Present Perfect Form zu erforschen. Wir haben das Konzept in der vorherigen Episode vorgestellt. Heute vertiefen wir es. Das Podcast-Format hat seine Grenzen. Es ist nicht für jeden geeignet. Ursprünglich habe ich das für meine eigenen Schüler entwickelt. Es ist keineswegs ein Ersatz für den traditionellen Unterricht, sondern versucht nur, eine interessante Ergänzung zu sein. So all in way of saying, what exactly? I'm saying that our goal for today is still to explore the use of the present perfect form. We introduced the concept in the previous episode, and today in this episode, we're digging a little deeper. Again, this format has its limits. It's not for everyone. I'm doing this for my people. It is by no means a perfect substitute for traditional classes, but attempts only to be an interesting supplement. Alright, so now we continue. Now, speaking of questions, we can also ask questions in the present perfect form. As in the case with all typical questions in English, the auxiliary verb or the helping verb changes position. The formula now reads as follows: has or have plus subject plus third form of the verb plus question mark. Okay, so here are some examples. Have you got any questions? Have they been to China? Has she ever been skydiving? Has he done his homework yet? Have you found this episode interesting so far? Now compare these two questions. These are a little more interesting, I would say. Did you watch a dance performance last year? Again, did you watch a dance performance last year? This is the simple past, finished time, no connection to now. In this case, the auxiliary verb takes the tense, so do becomes did. Second example. Have you ever watched a dance performance? Again, have you ever watched a dance performance? This is the present perfect. It asks about your life experience up to now. When speaking of life experiences, we can use ever, never, and always. Now it's time to try some DIY English. Think about some things that you've never done and some things that you've always wanted to try. Start with the past simple, then change them to the present perfect form. So there we have it. We've done the present perfect. I promised you a surprise. Well, as a further introduction of what is coming next, let me first say this is a place where I want my people to give themselves permission to dance with the language. I also give myself permission here to do the same. There is also meaning and value to be found outside of books and classrooms and well away from the lists and lists of rules written by others. There is also meaning and value to be found well within your own fields of personal, genuine interest. I would invite you to explore your own sources from your own perspective and in your own time. This is what this fresh and exciting democratization of the learning experience is all about.
With a small win is always a good way to begin. Okay then, we've come to the end of this episode 12 of the English Coach podcast. Be sure to check out the whole series on the present perfect. It only gets better, starting with episode 7 and ending with the upcoming extra special episode 15. Feel free to check out the show notes for this episode at www.trainingtree.de/podcast. Like it if you like it, and if you don't, lie to me. But still, feel free to share it with a friend, post a rating, or better yet, write a comment. This will help it to help you as it is intended to do. Subscribe only if you feel like,
so you know when there's a new episode available. Now, this episode was self-sponsored, but I'd like to give a resounding shout out to everyone who was involved, everyone who helped with the production of this episode today. The lovely and talented Pia and Lydia, and last but not least, the indomitable Sibylle von Spitzen. Thanks for listening. Looking forward to hearing from you, and bye for now. I would perhaps never tell my learners something like Google it. But, Sibylle von Spitzen drinks her coffee black and likes her whiskey straight. Anyway, enough of that.